with is there are three basic types of discrimination and harassment. And they operate a little bit differently from one another, so it's important that we kind of know what they are. The first one is called disparate or disparate, whichever way you like to say it, treatment. And those are usually individual cases where somebody is being treated differently because they are in a protected class. There is also what's called disparate impact. And that's where there may be a work rule or a training requirement or something like that that appears to apply to everybody, but as we start putting it into practice, certain groups aren't doing as well. Okay? And then the last is harassment. And you'll notice I didn't put just sexual harassment up there. Okay, so we need to know first what's a protected class. What do we mean by that term? Well, if we look at federal law first, under the Civil Rights Act of 1964, part of this is my having too many clicks in there. So disparate treatment can come up in a lot of different ways. For example, if you have a standard that you are expecting one group to meet that is higher or lower than another group, that can be disparate treatment. Or if you don't give equivalent feedback. So for example, there was a case where a woman worked for Texaco and she was African American. The managers came to her and said, look, we're concerned about the number of visitors you have in your office. Mostly they're black, and we think you're becoming the black matriarch of the company, and we don't like that. And so she went and complained. And so then the manager said, look, we're not going to do anything with respect to her. We're afraid we're going to get sued. So if she's not doing a good job, we're not going to tell her because we don't want to get sued. And then they did a reduction in force, and she gets laid off because she's not performing as well as somebody else. And she sues anyway. And the court said, look, if you had just treated her like you did everybody else, hold her to the same standards, make sure she's doing her job like everybody else, she may have improved or she may not have, but you didn't even give her that chance. If you have a certain group that you don't want to promote or that you discipline more harshly for the same kinds of offenses, those can give rise to disparate treatment cases as well. There's my poor guy slaving away at his test. So what do we do to avoid these sorts of claims? Well, we treat everybody the same, okay? So if we are giving performance evaluations, if we're seeing how people do on tests, we treat them all the same. Same feedback, same opportunities for training. So I want to talk first about All right. So let's take our first example here. Hey, how you doing? Good. So let's say that Marcus belongs to the World Church of the Creator. And this is a true religion, the World Church of the Creator. And they teach white supremacist principles. Okay? So Marcus has been on the front page of the Spokesman Review espousing his religious beliefs of white supremacy. Okay? But he hasn't said or done anything to anybody at work, even though he works with people of multiple races. Okay? So, question number 1, is that religion protected? Hey, fill out your forms, because we got to keep track.
What profession is he?
What profession is he? He works at a paper mill. Why does that matter?
Because when you're a firefighter 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's true.
Okay. So let's make him a firefighter. Does that change your answer as to whether or not his religion's protected or not?
I changed the outcome. Because firefighter 24 hours a day, he's representing the fire district, while he's in front of the newspaper spouting off racial things when he works with people that may be offended. Then I see that's no problem at work.
Okay. Anybody else disagree with that while we're talking about it? If he's not in his district uniform, you think he's protected? All right, so let's, does everybody have their answers down? We're gonna have a little honor system here, or this isn't gonna work. So, did anybody think that he was not protected?
I don't.
Is that your team answer back there? Nope. The team's going. Okay. So everybody thinks that his religion is protected? Woo, points for everybody. You're probably not going to get a cupcake if your team wins back there. All right. See, what am I going to do if everybody wins? I'm going to have to go buy more cupcakes. That's what I have to do.
We got a 9.
Just cut them into tiny little bits. Okay. All right, so I got to get to my, all right, following up on that, in order to make sure that Marcus doesn't say or do something inappropriate, can the employer kind of change his duties or maybe make sure that he isn't working with anyone that is a minority to make sure that he doesn't do something? Who thinks yes? Anybody think yes? Am I giving it away by the way I ask? Should Okay. So nobody thinks that they can limit his assignments at all? No? Why not? Be treating him differently? But he may just go out there and discriminate against people. He may say something horrible.
Maybe taking away a job from someone else that maybe has to work with him.
That would be a different discrimination or discipline if you discriminated against other people at that point.
You mean we can't just be worried that somebody might do something and take action against them? Correct. All right. Somebody's going to have to do bad here soon. Even if we think that the person's religion is completely offensive, don't get to take action based on that. And this came from a real case. All right, so let's talk about some common mistakes that happen with respect to national origin. There's a real upsurge in claims of national origin discrimination. Anybody care to hazard a guess why? And no, you don't get a point.
Darn Canadians.
Nope. The Canadians, how do the Canadians play into this? What has happened in
ISIS.
recent history? The ISIS, we've got 9/11. There's a lot of issues with certain national origins, and that has caused a huge upsurge in those claims. Okay. May be surprising to you that national origin is construed extremely broadly. All right, so here's our example. We've got a guy named Jan, and his parents are from India, and that's not Native American, but that's Indian. And so his coworkers don't treat him very well. They exclude him from things because he's Middle Eastern, and they think he's a terrorist or has terrorist connections, and his kind are the reason we have all the terrorist activities we have. Okay? He's not Middle Eastern. Can you claim that you are being discriminated against for having a Middle Eastern national origin if you're not? Sorry, what was that in the back?
Being accused of something you're not in the first place, and then to ice that cupcake, you're being discriminated.
That was a really good use of that. Is that a metaphor, if I'm remembering my grammar right? That's right. Okay. But how can you say I'm being discriminated against on the basis that I am because I'm Middle Eastern when I'm not?
Brown bag paper bag.
The paper bag test. Okay. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about gender discrimination. Gender stereotyping. Anybody know what that is? I'm sorry, what was that from the back?
Can't do, you
Or-
can't do that because you're female, you can't do that because you're male, that stuff.
All right, so here's an example. So we'll take a gal this time. Jenny is a great firefighter, okay? And she's quick on her feet, the patients love her, very physically fit, doesn't have any issues with that. But she's a little rough around the edges. Most of the time, her hair kind of looks like she just piled out of bed. She swears a lot. And she's kind of loud and obnoxious. Okay? So she wants to be promoted, and she's told no because she really needs to be a bit more feminine. Okay? Don't holler out the answers yet, because you got to figure out who's going to be getting points. Or I really am going to be going to get more cupcakes. So what do you think? Can the employer say, you know, look, we have a certain image to project here, and you just are looking a little harsh, and so that's not somebody we want in a leadership position, or not? Or is that a problem?
The word feminine, no. Can't say that.
Professional or
But more professional, you need to have your hair combed like every firefighter in the department. You need to have your uniform dressed. Well, it's a standard applied equally to everybody, but just saying, no, you need to be more feminine, no.
Well, but, you know, I mean, most often, guys have shorter hair, right? So, you know, I mean, if you saw my hair when I get out of bed in the morning, it's like, okay? But you don't have that so much with guys. What do they mean, yeah?
What was she hired for? The job description?
Firefighter, paramedic.
Okay,
But she wants to be promoted,
if she's doing the job,
okay?
she cusses. So what? That's not professional.
Yeah, chief.
So, as long as you're treating her the same as you would anybody else, you're not treating her differently because she cusses her parents. If everybody was that way, you're going to have a big decision. You don't have any. If there's a policy and an expectation, you keep
But isn't it true that the public kind of has a different expectation? I mean, if a guy's cussing, that's one thing. If a girl's cussing, that's something different. Doesn't the public view that differently? No?
As a firefighter.
Okay, so nobody should be cussing, right? Nobody here would ever cuss, right? Okay. And how do we define not in public? Not in front of somebody you're helping, or? But in the back there, it's all okay?
This is a public building.
Yep. Okay. All right. Who thinks that we could require her to clean up her act a little bit and be more feminine?
I don't like that word.
You guys don't like that word?
I don't
first half of the sentence,
Yes, the second half.
Okay, so what if I change my language there to say, you have to be more professional and not cuss and comb your hair and be quieter?
If you say that ahead of time before, you bring it up to her, say she's wanting to apply for this position. And you say, we've heard about the cussing and you're loud and all these little things. We just don't allow that. This is the standards that we have and it's for everybody. So I think that would be something that, maybe there's a guideline that she'd have to follow.
Okay?
Maybe tell her it falls prior to that.
Back?
But if you turn around and say, we have guidelines you don't have to follow, what happened to those guidelines before when she was doing that? That's what she was her communication. That should have been a long time ago, not just when she did the promotion.
Okay, so we have this issue raised. Why has it been okay for the last several years while she's been a firefighter, paramedic, and everybody thinks she's doing a good job, but now that she wants to be promoted, that's suddenly a problem? Did I summarize that correctly? Okay. All right, so we gotta get our votes in here. So, how best to do this without giving away for everybody? So, who thinks that she cannot be told that she needs to clean up her act? And I mean that generically. Nobody? Everybody thinks that they can tell her she's got to clean up her act? Okay.
Well, wait,
Waiting.
if you tell her to clean up her act as a professional standard, then you can't pull the feminine part on
Okay?
her. Okay?
Okay. So everybody thinks that we could not tell her to be more feminine, but we could make her adhere to the same standards that everybody else has to adhere to about combing your hair and. Okay.
That, you've already discriminated your professional standards from 6 months ago or 2 years ago. You didn't have a problem then. Now you're changing the rules in midstream.
Okay. So you guys want to have the vote back there that says you can't make her do that? Yeah. And then that's I heard that from the back. That's a correct supposition. She has been considered a great employee up until this point, even though she cusses and doesn't comb her hair.
Maybe she's a great firefighter, but she's not a great officer because she doesn't have the ability to set a good example.
Could be. Could be. Okay. So are you guys taking the vote back there that you could tell her, or you couldn't tell her that she has to clean up her act? Do it.
They're saying we could tell. I say no, but my team is saying yes.
So I'm not sure where exactly where you landed on that. So I'm gonna give you guys so what are you guys back there? You guys are the lifesavers back there, so you get like a half a point here. Stick to your guns back there, my friend. Stick to your guns. So in a scenario like that, where you have had certain conduct that has not been a problem, but then when somebody wants to, step up and be promoted, and suddenly things that this person has been all along are no longer okay because they don't look right on a female, you could end up with a problem. And let me give you the case example that this comes from. There was a woman accountant, and she was an associate, not a partner, but she was dynamite. She went out and she got this huge defense contract, brought in millions of dollars to the accounting firm, but she was, in fact, rough around the edges. Okay? So when she wanted to be partner, they brought her in and they said, you really need to act a little more femininely, talk a little bit nicer, not so gruff. And, you might want to consider charm school. Believe it or not, they said that to her. They want to consider a course in charm school. And they didn't promote her. And what that does is it puts somebody in an exact catch-22. The very characteristics that allow her to go out there and do a great job and bring in millions of dollars to the firm are the things that they're saying she can't do if she wants to become a partner. And that's stereotyping. If you aren't fitting into what we There it went? Okay. Space bar? All right. I jumped ahead. All right, so what about this scenario? Marjorie is in her first trimester. She's pregnant. And the captain is really concerned that in the calls that she's going to have to go on, something could happen, and cause injury to her or to the child. She's had some problems in the past with miscarriages, and so everybody's a little bit nervous. They don't want something to happen on the job. So can the captain or the district say, look, we're going to put you so you don't take these dangerous calls for your own good and for that of the baby? Yeses? Yeses? Any no's? So we got this row no, that row no, and the back row? Who else said no? Oh, now you want to say no? You said no from the beginning? Okay, so we got backdraft. 1, 2, 4, 5, right?
Hosehound said no.
You got who said no?
Hosehound said no.
Hosehound said no? Okay. The answer is no. Why is she not fit for duty? Thanks for asking that question. Who decides that? It's a perfect question. I was dealing with 2 different issues like this, not with pregnancy related, but other sorts of where somebody was injured on the job. And the employer or HR wanted to say, we don't think that you're able to do that. Okay? We all in this room are not docs. We all don't get to decide when somebody's fit for duty or not fit for duty on our own best judgment. Okay? If the doctor says that somebody can do the duty, then they can do the duty. And if we have real concerns with that, which has happened with other districts that I represent, then sometimes you have a second opinion. But we in this room don't get to make that call. Yes?
But on the same token, if the captain's responsible for what's going on, couldn't the answer be yes as long as they find her appropriate accommodations through her pregnancy?
Okay, why? What if I don't want that? What if I want to be doing the regular job?
But if the captain's one in charge, he ultimately is taking that responsibility of the safety of his crew.
Okay? And if there are real concerns, then we need to talk to a medical professional to see if those concerns are valid or not. We don't get to make those decisions ourselves.
Once she divulges the fact that she's pregnant, then we have to go to her to say, hey, listen, we have to you're pregnant, but we need to get some doctor clearances. We need to figure out when and where and how you fall into this categories, and it's up to you and your doctor to decide when you're fit for duty, when you're not fit for duty. We're going to put you on light duty, and just be upfront with them.
Yeah, just say, just want to check in. Are there any restrictions we need to be aware of? If there aren't, rock on. Yeah.
So she shows up Tuesday morning, ready to full shift,
Uh-huh.
and the captain is concerned, hey, you're pregnant, you're not feeling good. Can you request that employee, I need you to go get a doctor's note and show me that you're fit for duty?
We can request a doctor's note if we have reason to think somebody isn't fit. All right, now those were all kind of examples of the way disparate treatment can come up. You're treating an individual different, okay, because they're being in a protected class. Now let's talk about disparate impact. Don't you love that picture? I love that picture. All right, so let's say that I am running my own fire department and I want to have only women there. But I know I can't say I'm only going to hire women because somebody will sue me, right? So what I do instead is I say, all right, in order to work at my fire department, you have to be less than 135 pounds and shorter than 5'6". Okay? So what happens when I start applying that rule to all of the applicants that come in? Yeah, I'm gonna be able to get rid of all of, or most of the guys, right? Because most of you are gonna weigh more than 135 pounds and you're gonna be taller than 5'6". Okay? That's how disparate impact works. We have a rule that looks fine, but it's, kind of secretly designed, either intentionally or accidentally, to exclude a group of people. So then, as all of you tall guys were out, I would have to be able to establish that being less than 5'6" and under 135 pounds was necessary. This sort of thing happened actually in a fire department on the East Coast, and the case went all the way to the United States Supreme Court recently, a few years ago. So they had a promotional exam that they gave, and a bunch of different folks took it, a big fire department, and one minority group, I think it was Hispanics in that case, did not do as well on the exam. So the district is like, oh shoot, somebody is going to sue us. So we're going to just toss this exam, we're not going to use the results. Okay? Well, all those people that studied really hard, did well on the exam, and were eligible for promotion said, wait a minute, that's not fair. I studied really hard to do well on that promotional exam. So they sued for being denied promotion. Okay? And the court said, employers, you can't just panic at the thought that you might get sued because a group is out. You have to look at the exam. In this case, there was nothing wrong with the exam, perfectly legitimate promotional test. And it tested to see who would be good in that position, so no reason to get rid of it. And the district lost. So what do? We make sure that the rules that we have and the tests that we have are really related to being successful at the job. Okay? It used to be in a lot of jobs that you just did a basic physical exam. How fast can you run? How many sit-ups can you do? That sort of thing. But now we test more for what exactly the job requires. So I know I had a friend who wanted to work for Avista, and she had to shimmy up a pole in a certain amount of time carrying equipment. because that's what you have to do. Same thing that we do here. Not polls, but you get the idea. All right. So let's take this example. Let's say we have a prison, because this came from a real case. So they had a rule that the guards at the prison had to be at least 5'10", and 180 pounds. Okay. So, as you might expect, women applicants and Asian applicants tended to be excluded at a much broader numbers than everybody else. So here's your question number 8. Is being a certain height and a certain weight a legitimate job requirement for being a prison guard? Don't know where they came up with it. It was just that was the rule. Talk amongst your team. It's a male prison. What's that, Jim? Yep. Okay. All right, how many of our teams think that it is a job requirement? Okay, we got. You think it's a job requirement in the back? Anybody else? A tentative here. That's right. Confidence. Okay. Anybody else think that it is job related, that you got to be? Okay. So we got that row. So we got second row, third row, fifth row. How about over here? Nobody over here? Job requirement or not? So yes? All right, I'm getting lost.
How many say no?
Should we do no first? Okay, how many say no, not a job requirement? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And what was it? The hose hounds? And you guys? 3? The blanks? Are you guys the blanks? No. Okay, I'm getting there. Work with me. All right, now we're going to move and talk harassment. I expect you guys in the back to be right on it since that's your team name.
We're on it.
They are.
So you can harass on any of the protected classes. So let's talk about sexual harassment first. Okay? Girls can harass guys unlawfully. Guys can harass girls unlawfully. Guys can harass guys unlawfully. We talked about all those protected classes, and the district policy picks. What I want you to remember is that when you are harassing someone, not that you ever will, but when someone is harassing someone, it is all about power. Even though it says that it was a scam photo, it was all free. So how do we know if it's unwelcome? Well, one option is sometimes you get direct information, like that guy did. Okay? By words or actions, there is no question in your mind that it is not appreciated. Correct. Sometimes it's indirect, and you can tell by somebody's body language. Either they're pulling away, they're rolling their eyes, they're turning their back on you. Those are all things that it is important to remember that conduct can start out welcome and not offensive, and it can turn on you in a dime. So it's better not to go there. There's lots of conversations you can have in the workplace. There's lots of appropriate jokes you can tell in the workplace that don't trigger any of these protected classes. Tell lawyer jokes. Gosh, I heard one lately and I won't tell it. But anyway, you also can't just gauge based on the other person's response, okay? Because it is not uncommon at all for people to not speak up, to just go along to get along. They don't want to be singled out. They don't want to be that person that complains, okay? So you have to self-monitor and not rely on whether or not the person laughs or doesn't tell you to get lost.
Where's that fine line? You had that picture back there with the guy was touching the gal, but you know, who cares who's touching? Where's that fine line?
I care who's touching who, and the chief cares who's touching who.
Is that attaboy, good job, that pat on the back, or is that poking the personal space? Some people love it, some people embrace it, some people don't. So what point is it okay or not okay?
Well, and that is the challenge. You don't know at what point it's okay. And that's why you have to not go there. Okay?
No touching in the workplace.
No touchy-touchy.
Good morning handshake, that's still.
Handshake's fine. Okay, handshake is fine. I mean, and really, you don't have to get right up to the line. You know, you just.
Personal space. What's a rule of thumb of good personal space offer? Is there a measurement?
I can't tell you that there's a measurement, but yeah, you know, if I had to pick a number, I would say you got to have it at least 2 feet from somebody.
Yeah, I remember learning in the personal communications they had, like, actually, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like within 2 feet.
Yeah, then you.
Well, no, it wasn't like within, it was like, that was in a class in college, they were talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
Just leave room for Jesus, Cody, you'll be fine.
Hey? All right, so just kind of reiterate that. You don't be giving people massages, okay? You don't be giving people tickling in the ribs, okay?
If you're receiving that massage and it's not welcome, you're like, but you don't want to be that guy that's uncomfortable.
Call me. You can call me direct.
That's when you're just going along with it to avoid making it worse.
Yep, yep, okay.
I guess if you think it's bad, it's probably not good.
Yeah, I had a lawyer mentor person one time, and we were actually talking about ethics questions, and he said, you know, a good rule of thumb, if you have to ask yourself, is this ethical or not, odds are it's not.
Yeah.
And so the same kind of thing, if you have to ask yourself, I wonder if Michelle would consider this harassment, then don't do it.
We have that same rule here as well, we shoot sharp.
There you go. What else we have here? All right. What you might intend is completely irrelevant. I hear from guys all the time and from women, I was just joking. I didn't mean anything by it. I didn't mean to hurt anybody's feelings or make them feel uncomfortable. And what you intended doesn't matter. It's how it's perceived. Okay? So we look at it from both a subjective perspective, the person who received whatever it is that you did they find it to be offensive? And then also, would a reasonable person, the same gender as the victim, we'll call him victim, harassee, be offended? And the reason that we do that is because the courts have recognized that the types of risks that men and women are exposed to in life are different. You know, women are disproportionately victims of assaults, rapes, that sort of thing. So what is offensive to a woman may be different than what is offensive to a guy. Okay? And I would also suggest to you that when it comes to male on male, sometime when we're not recording, we'll just sit and talk about all the different things I've seen over the last 25 years.
I can pause it.
Yeah, you can pause it. Okay. All right, statements. Avoid these, okay? Honey, sugar, baby, sweetie, all that kind of stuff, okay? Was it Arnold Schwarzenegger? I think that's who got in trouble for calling a bunch of guys girly men. Yeah, girly men. Okay, don't do that either. Okay. If you want to go immediately to the unemployment office and not have good luck, use gender-specific profanity. I can tell you right now, if you use the C word, things will go badly. Okay? Okay. That last one there is when somebody's pickup line too, I guess. Want to get to know a real man? Yikes. All right, so let's talk a little about some of the other kinds of harassment. Racial harassment. You can't be telling racial jokes, okay? No innuendos of that sort. No posters, signs, anything like that. We actually had in Spokane not long ago somebody who hung a noose over somebody's desk thinking they were funny.
How did they think that was perceived?
They weren't thinking. They thought they were being funny.
How'd that go?
Not well. Not well. Okay. And don't forget, this isn't limited to black versus white. Okay, we've got lots of other national origins and races out there, and it includes calling people. Some examples here. There's some reverse kissing bandit. How about that one? Isn't that nice? There'll be none of that either. All right. You can be accused of sexual harassment even if there's no direct sexual overtones to it. So think back to what I said about it being about power. So, if you are just giving somebody the cold shoulder, not allowing them to be part of the gang because of their whatever protected class they're in, teasing them, that's like the third grade stuff, pulling ponytails and doing stuff like that. That can get you in trouble as well. Ooh, somebody says. Yeah. So again, we look to see on this sliding scale whether it is sufficiently severe or pervasive. So what did you say? How offensive was it? Okay. All right. Fred and Susie. I hope there's no Freds and Susies in here. I was trying to pick names that wouldn't match anybody. So Fred decides he's had enough. He's going to break it off. Susie desperately wants to get back together. And so she is contacting him, asked him a few different times, please meet me for a cup of coffee so we can just talk about what happened and see if we can fix it. Is that a harassment?
Did they both work at the same site?
I'm sorry, what?
Did they both work at the same place?
Yes, they're coworkers. Thank you for that clarification. Sometimes things that are just clear in my head are, okay? Is there anything that you would need to know to be able to answer that?
Yeah.
What do you want to know?
Does he see it as harassment? Like, is that, he could be easily offended, and you could take that as harassment. You shouldn't.
Okay, so is that how we decide whether or not how Fred feels about it? Or is that only part of the question?
And the answer is stop.
Well, he said, I don't want to go to coffee with you. Yeah, in the back. Okay, has to be unwanted. He said no. What was the question up here? Nothing? Okay. Anything else you might want to know? Should not be dating in the workplace. Exactly. We'll talk about that a little bit too when we get further. I'm sorry, what? Not necessarily the workplace, no. No. I mean, he's used everything. I mean, he texts her sometimes. He leaves her voicemail, a little note on her locker,
After he called it off?
After he called it off, and she wants to try and fix it.
But it seems like he's leaving around.
Well, then it's not harassment.
I guess as long as
Indirect.
is he's doing it, and unless she said, or he says, no, quit asking me this, then I think the next one is harassment. But you can pretty much keep doing it until she says no, because maybe she's wanting to see how long he's going to do it. Maybe she's thinking different. Well, maybe we could get back together, but when she says no, then I think quit harassing me. Then I think he needs to stop doing it.
Okay, so
She is.
so as soon as he's got to say something like, stop harassing me, you think?
If Fred feels harassed, it's harassment.
Okay, is that it? If Fred feels harassed, that's it?
Well, if it's also creating a hostile work environment for everybody else around them, then, you know, she's persistent and makes it uncomfortable for everybody else, then it's definitely an issue. Thanks, talk to her, and okay with it.
You need to,
Like Sally, Fred's new girlfriend.
Sally, Fred's new girlfriend needs to go tell her to knock it off.
Sally's gonna go beat up Susan.
I'm going to need another slide to put all these extra facts in. Okay. Okay, so how many people think that with the facts we have there of Susie asking Fred multiple times to go have coffee to talk about their former relationship, that that's harassment? Back row one. You got, raise them high, be proud, so I can see. You're changing your answer? Okay, I'm going to go with, who doesn't? Is there anybody who doesn't? Back row doesn't? Okay. I'm going to give back row a point, back there. That's lifesavers, right? This is like, who's doing this math up here? This is like 5.5 at the moment now. So here's the deal, okay? I can't back up and show you the slide because I have strict instructions from Marty not to do that. But we have to look at things like, how often is it happening? How many days? Is it sufficiently severe and pervasive to create a hostile environment for him? Okay? There will certainly come a point where it becomes a hostile work environment, but I'm not sure we're there yet, with a few times asking to go to coffee. Okay? So, okay. And the other part that's important is it's not only what Fred thinks, because what Fred thinks is important, but collectively, what would a reasonable guy find sufficiently severe or pervasive to wreck the work environment? Okay? Well, did you just say something about Fred's wife?
She's wondering how she
People based on that either. You don't get to attempt to convert your coworkers to your religion. Okay? That's not what we do at the workplace. You don't get to tease coworkers about their religious beliefs. We watch for radio stations that people might find offensive or make it uncomfortable for them. Any closely held belief, we talked at the beginning, if you're an atheist, that sort of thing, it's all covered. So that's a loose definition. I guess I didn't need those. Okay, here's a broader definition of national origin, just so you guys can keep in mind how many things are included. Okay? Where your ancestors are from. If you are part of an organization that is associated with a particular national origin, that can do it. I want to give you this particular definition of sexual orientation. I suspect in our collective lifetimes here, we will see a passage of what's called ENDA. which is the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, which would make national protection for sexual orientation. But in the meantime, we live in a state where sexual orientation is a protected class. Okay? Look at how broad that is. Just about every aspect of sexual orientation is included. Okay? Watch your terminology. I just had a case with an individual that used the term, "that's so gay." Okay? And people use that in different ways. Happy. Lame. I've heard my kids use it in meaning lame, but you have to be really careful to not use those terms that can be misinterpreted. Okay.
How hard is it to prove the meaning behind it? Gay has multiple meanings. Somebody uses that phrase, "that's so gay," and for example, maybe happy. But somebody says, "No, I didn't mean happy. You were attacking my orientation." Where does it come in your job to prove it is or isn't?
What ends up happening is two people testify, and a jury believes one or the other. So the way we try and shore up one side or the other, because I've done both sides of cases, is what other types of activities or conduct have taken place. I can tell you it'd be a hard sell right now to suggest that somebody used "that's so gay" to mean happy, because that's just not the normal vernacular anymore. Okay? I mean, when the person I interviewed said that to me, it was all I could do not to roll my eyes, because I was like, I know you didn't mean it that way.
Well, times have changed, though.
They have.
And so has words. Words have changed. You can watch Leave It to Beaver and find the stuff that will be offensive today that was acceptable in 1950.
Yeah, All in the Family, too. But we are going to, I mean, the standard that's going to be applied is what's the norm for today.
I guess that's my point. Is
Yep.
We're living in a moving target society.
Absolutely.
Today it's okay, but tomorrow it's
Yep, might be. Which is why you get me back like every year, because it keeps shifting.
bump it up.
Well, and you know, I mean, I think about this from time to time. We all know that we are not supposed to discriminate. We all know it's illegal. And yet I have a full-time job.
You get paid for something.
Yeah, so people are still doing stuff out there. Whether they think they aren't going to get caught, or they didn't really mean it, or somebody didn't tell them it was bad, you know. Yeah, Chief?
One of the other things, and maybe you could touch on, with the social media, when we talk about, somebody doesn't think that somebody's going to see it, or
Oh, yeah, and I've got social media coming up, but
you do.
The name of the what?
What's the name of the act or the bill that's gonna go against it?
I don't remember the number, House Bill 27 something. Somebody texted me from Olympia today, though, and said that it died on the floor, but I don't know if that's true.
It was in the news.
Was it in the news it died on the floor?
Yep.
Okay. So, disabilities. So, and I know you guys are getting tired, so we'll kind of move it along here, but disability is a very broad category. Be very careful that you don't make assumptions about people based on what you think they can or cannot do because of a disability, because that can land you in trouble pretty quickly. Those are very, very challenging. Age protects anybody over the age of 40. You can't treat somebody younger differently. It doesn't mean somebody under 40, it means somebody younger. You love my cartoon? Okay. Oh, and I gave this one away already, probably. So if somebody is 55 and they are let go and they're replaced by somebody, what did I put, 48? Would that be age discrimination?
You're over 40.
Because everybody's over 40? So, okay, how many think? If we ever have a, never mind. So, how many people think this would be age discrimination? Anybody? No?
Betty's not pulling her weight, and the 48-year-old just got out of college and needs a way better worker.
Here's the wild thing, because nobody's going to get points for this one, and that's why I used this example. If you let go of somebody who's 55 and you bring in somebody younger, even though they're over the age of 40, that can still be age discrimination. That's the way that law is written. Okay? Yes, sir.
Washington State a voluntary state where both parties can exactly not a right word state.
It's an at-will state, is that what you're thinking? Yes, it's employment at will, but anytime you're discriminating, that would be an exception to at will. Okay?
Seems like a hard thing.
Want to talk a minute about rumors? It's a issue that comes up in different areas of employment. So now let's get to the information highway. The world has changed, okay? And I want to talk to you guys about this from a couple of different aspects. One is public records. Your text messages become public records, even if they're on your private phone. If you are texting for work stuff, they can become public records. Your emails become public records. Do not put anything in there that you would not want to see this big in a trial, okay? On the internet, nothing ever really goes away. There are companies that make millions of dollars, and all they do is swoop in, mirror your hard drive, and get the information off your phone and give it to lawyers. Okay? A warning on dating sites. Apparently, there is these sites called sugardaddy.com and Sugar Mama. There are people out there that will prey on you, okay, and accuse you of behaviors you didn't engage in. Social media sites, you may think that you can put stuff on there and nobody will ever see it because you're all clever and you have your little privacy thing set just so. People will find it and people will see it. And if they get a subpoena for your information, they will get right past your security. You'll be required as part of discovery to give up your security codes. So don't think because you set your stuff very cleverly that we'll never get to it. And do not use your internet or your social media sites to talk badly about other people in the district. So here are some guidelines that you can use to try and make sure you don't end up with a problem. Make sure that anything that you do post is clear that it's what you think and it's not what the district thinks. Okay? Don't be out partying and carrying on in your district gear. All right? Bad idea. And we've had cases where particularly firefighters and medical personnel and firefighters, police officers, they put information on their social media sites about crashes they've been on, that sort of thing. And that can be a violation of privacy. HIPAA is really tight. And you can be liable for the things that you post. You get sued. Yes, Chief?
I would just offer with that, but, and John touched on it a couple times earlier, but even though you're not on the clock 24 hours a day.
All right, so I came up with this list of the top 10 reasons why it is a bad idea to date somebody, particularly if you have a supervisor-subordinate relationship, but it goes beyond that too. Okay? Like I said, everything you do becomes suspect. If somebody gets a promotion or doesn't get a promotion, or gets a good assignment or shift and doesn't get a good assignment or shift, suddenly everybody's asking, is that because they're together, or did I get it because I'm not with that person? Yes, sir.
So I think you're pertaining to what you're teaching or presenting as a dating thing, but could not also be classified as just after-work activities. Could be two men that always go out drinking or fishing or hunting, but it's still a relationship in a sense. And those things could still be valid. This guy got the promotion because he's Joe Blow's drinking buddy.
Yep, that could lend itself to favoritism, claims of favoritism.
Did you get to the favorite firefighting thing now, or?
Number two to Rob Sayers, really?
Okay. Second, once either while you are going out with somebody or when you break up with somebody, you don't necessarily want your romantic skills or lack of them being everybody's topic of conversation. Okay? You don't want people to lose respect for you or have management doubt your ability to lead. At some point it ends, and then everybody's talking about you at the water cooler. You want to be accused of retaliation. You might get sued by the people you weren't having a relationship with, or you might get sued by the person you were having a relationship with. And This one. So we're skipping question 12. All right, so here's a practice for us. So Stan had a burning desire to drive fire engine. He was first in his class, but when he applied, he was told he can't have the job because we only let women drive the trucks because we are better drivers anyway. Right? Stan was crushed. What would we call that? What's that? They do statistical risk assessment, and their losses are greater from, I think, some facts about what was happening. There were comments being made, nice legs or nice rack. They compared different employees' breasts, talked about nipples, and made comments when on sexual harassment. They excluded women from some meetings and conversations. They were running kind of a boys' club. Talked about testosterone, used some of those gender-specific cuss words, and this is real stuff. People are out there doing these sorts of things. So each of those plaintiffs requested $1 million for that behavior. And here's what ended up happening. Big dollars. So as you're asking yourself about the statement that you're thinking you might need to make, you need to ask yourself, is it worth, $1 million? Because that's where it could end up. And my favorite part, plaintiff's attorney's fee, $700,000. Can you imagine? One case, $700,000.
It just seems like with all that money, you wonder how many of these are false accusations.
A jury determined that it was not. And I can tell you that if you get a group, you get multiple men or women, whatever the case may be, saying similar things have happened, juries tend to believe them.
How do they come up with those numbers?
The economic damages are a function of lost wages, lost benefits, past, future. That's the economic. The non-economic is emotional distress, and the jury says a number that they think is fair, that collectively they come up with. Could be anything. Kind of really a function of how damaged the person was, how impacted emotionally they were, and then, second, how offended the jury is. And you guys got lots of really great things to do with that kind of money other than pay claim. Okay. This is kind of a new thing. When one gender takes another gender to go do things but doesn't invite the other gender because they don't want to be, accused of they call. And then this kind of harkens back to what the chief was saying, a word on professionalism. What you guys do reflects on the district. We all read in the paper about the police officer who was off duty and had been drinking and got a DUI and hit another car. You know, when you do things like that, one of the things that's a good side and a downside to the internet is that what lawyers do is they go surfing and they go find you and they get on your, they ask to be friended and they find out what's been going on, and then you get on the stand to testify or some other issue happens in the course of your position, and all of a sudden you're answering questions about that sort of thing. All right. This is the time for any questions you might have on it, just about anything. I have to say that with this group, just about anything. Okay? Yes, sir.
Back to social media. Would you say posting a picture of, say, like a rock slide to perform, like, say, I-90 is closed, would that be kind of the role of a public information officer?
Yeah, so just so everybody hears the question, so what if you post on your social media a picture of I-90 being closed because of a rock slide?
Right, and you represent the fire department, so it's like,
Yeah.
it's a quite fire department, you post a picture, it says, avoid I-90, would that be?
I mean, if it's just a rock slide, then I don't see that it is so much of an issue, although, you know, if you got a request, a public information request for any photos you had of that, you'd have to give that stuff up. So, other questions? Anybody else? Oh, it's just like free lawyer time, yeah.
Since you mentioned the public request thing, so if you have Spokane County Fire District and Litigation Board on our Facebook page, is that open for public records? Can I walk in the front door and say, I want
Not just if you listed that as your employer. If you have postings on there about, people you've helped, then absolutely. Then I'm going to be digging through your
That gets into HIPAA.
Facebook. It gets into HIPAA, but it also is straight public records. If you have information related to your official duties on your Facebook page, we may have to disclose those, which means I have to go look and sort.
It's always safer to, allow the district to post the stuff first, because we screen that stuff and look at it from the district standpoint of, and it's an accident or whatever, we post it first. And then, it gets shared by whomever.
Right.
That, for an individual within the department to post a picture of an accident, that's when you start doing.
Right. Right. Or even if you're just describing them, gosh, I had a rough day at work today because I did